to this work. Just, the fact that you're here with us now just shows how dedicated you are to this work. So I appreciate that about you already. And so welcome. Let's talk here about the Fair Start for Kids Act. So you folks have probably heard about the Fair Start for Kids Act, but we'll dig into it a little bit more deeply today, just in the context of trauma-informed and healing-centered care. So the Fair Start for Kids Act, passed by the Washington State Legislature in 2021, was a historic investment in early childhood. It's a pretty cool deal, especially for somebody like me who is very committed to growing trauma-informed care supports. So the Fair Start for Kids Act, specifically Section 304, calls upon DCYF to grow trauma-informed care supports for folks like you, for early learning professionals. And so specifically what the legislation calls upon DCYF to do is it calls upon us to grow specifically supports, including additional compensation for individual staff who have an infant and early childhood mental health or other child development specialty credential. And then it also calls upon DCYF to grow trauma-informed professional development and training. So we'll dig into that in more detail here in a little bit. But I just wanted to highlight the fact that the Fair Start for Kids Act is a pretty big deal here in Washington. A super exciting opportunity to grow trauma-informed supports. So, and that's what brought me here. I actually moved here from Montana to do this job, to satisfy this legislation. So I think it's a pretty big deal. So with that, let's talk a little bit about who stands to benefit from these supports. So who is eligible for supports per the Fair Start for Kids Act? And it's talked, we have it right here on the screen. We have a list of folks who are eligible per the legislation for these supports, right? So when we're discussing who are the eligible providers, like this kid is asking, right? Who is eligible? We're talking about an employee or owner of a licensed or certified child care center or outdoor nature-based center, accepting state subsidies specifically. So the state subsidies is important, like these entities, these providers work for programs the programs need to be receiving state subsidy. So that's kind of a big part of this, right? It's also employee or owners of licensed family home providers accepting state subsidies specifically. Also a contractor or a provider of the Early Childhood Education and Assistance Program, or ECAP, or Birth to 3 ECAP specifically, licensed exempt childcare programs receiving subsidy, and also early achievers coaches. So those are the providers very specifically that we're talking about. When we're talking about early achievers coaches, we're talking also about B3QI coaches, we're talking about ECAP coaches too, so just to highlight that. And so we'll talk in more detail here in just a couple of minutes about, again, how the awards are going to be distributed. But first, I want to talk about what exactly is trauma-informed care. So the whole point of the legislation, right, is to educate people about what is trauma-informed care. So I'm going to just take advantage of the next 5-10 minutes to talk about what trauma-informed care is, so you get kind of a flavor of what we're looking at here. And so again, noting, I go to a lot of different meetings and I talk to a lot of different people, and really so often folks are unfamiliar with what trauma-informed care is, even though people are usually instinctively doing the work on the ground. So I'm sure that you folks are already engaging in trauma-informed work, but maybe you're not calling it that, So we'll talk just a little bit more about how we can officially define what trauma-informed care is. And so when we start defining what trauma-informed work is, a good place to start is with the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, which is also known as SAMHSA. They put out a lot of really good guidance on what a trauma-informed program or organization looks like. So I like to reference SAMHSA quite a bit when I'm talking broadly about what trauma-informed work is. So one way to talk about trauma-informed care is with these 4 R's, right? And so what is a trauma-informed entity? What is a trauma-informed person even? I think about these R's related to me as an individual. So specifically, trauma-informed individual, program, agency, first and foremost, realizes the impact of trauma on the folks we work with, the folks we walk alongside. That trauma-informed person also understands potential paths for recovery. So that's what we're talking about with the first R, a trauma-informed program, a trauma-informed person, very specifically realizes the widespread impact of trauma and understands the potential paths for recovery. So that's the first R, right? Just to realize it's an issue, right? And that we can recover from it. So that's the first one. The second R is a trauma-informed program, agency, individual, etc., recognizes the signs and symptoms of trauma in the folks we walk alongside, whether it be kids in your learning environments or, you know, families that you're working with. Maybe it's even yourselves, right? We all, you know, we know statistically that 7 out of 10 Americans have at least one early adversity, right? So a trauma-informed entity realizes that, or recognizes rather, the signs and symptoms of trauma in clients, families, staff, you know, kids, etc., anyone involved with this system. And then the third R, specifically, a trauma-informed entity responds to trauma by fully integrating knowledge about trauma into our policies, into our procedures, into our practices. And so that's what we're doing right now. That's what the Fair Start for Kids Act Section 304 is all about, is about that third R. We're responding to trauma in a proactive way, right? And so that's the excitement here. And then finally, a trauma-informed entity seeks to actively resist re-traumatization. Whatever we do, we don't want to re-traumatize people. You know, ultimately, we want to facilitate healing and growth and learning and all that good stuff. But at the basic level, we want to make sure we're resisting re-traumatization, right? So we can look at these 4 R's specifically, kind of like a roadmap to the increasing provision of trauma-informed care. So we're getting closer to what it looks like. We're getting closer with this roadmap. And then when we look at the key principles here, these 6 key principles of trauma-informed care, also from SAMHSA, these can be thought of as road signs to the increasing provision of trauma-informed care. So we're really getting close, right? Anchored to each one of these key principles is a whole set of practices that individuals can employ to be trauma-informed. So looking at the key principle of safety, for example, right? What does it look like to be safe in a classroom? You all know this, right? What does it look like to be safe in a child care center? It means being at eye level for kids. It means not using Jess's big voice when she's doing a presentation, right? Or using your arms like this. You know, it means being quiet at eye level. It means having orderly transitions in classrooms to recess, to lunch, for example, having a safe space for kids to store their belongings when they're in your program. So that's what safety looks like in a classroom, right? When we're talking about trustworthiness and transparency, thinking about what that looks like in an early learning program, it means following through with promises, you know, and why is that important? Why is it important to follow through with promises, to be trustworthy? Because if a kid is growing up in dysfunction, if maybe they're coming from a house with somebody who's using substances to excess, or maybe there's domestic violence, odds are they are not growing up in a trusting environment. And so you as service providers have a real exciting opportunity to help rebuild the kids' ability to trust, right? So it's just a huge opportunity for us all to help kids heal, right? So that's what it looks like when we're talking about trauma-informed care. And that's just a tiny little glimpse of what it looks like to be trauma-informed. And so with that, we are going to talk about the cash money here in a minute, but I do want to cover one more important concept before we talk about the specific training awards and we start discussing like what that means, you know, how they're being distributed. So one final important concept that I really love to highlight when I'm discussing trauma-informed and healing-centered work is the healing-centered approach. It's a fairly new concept when we're talking about the trauma-informed world. It came out in 2018. It was this term came from Dr. Sean Ginwright. And I appreciate this because it emphasizes the fact that healing from trauma really has to happen in a collective. It's a relationship-based process. So I'll give this definition of the healing-centered approach for you, which is on the screen. But so it's just if you're on a phone or something, so you can hear it. So a healing-centered approach, the healing-centered approach is a holistic approach involving culture, spirituality, civic action, and collective healing. A healing-centered approach views trauma not simply as an individual isolated experience, but rather it highlights the way in which trauma and healing are experienced collectively. So the point here, one of the main points here is that usually trauma doesn't happen in isolation. It oftentimes happens in relationship with people. And so as trauma doesn't happen in a vacuum, you know, alone to someone in a bungalow in Tacoma like I am, you know, we want to make sure that healing also happens in relationship. And that's really just emphasizing your role in all of this, and that we together have such an amazing opportunity to help folks heal and help folks grow and find meaning from their experiences, right? So that's my little Cliff's Notes version of what trauma-informed and healing-centered work is. And now we're going to talk in more detail about what we're up to growing these supports and how we arrived here. And then we'll talk about the eligible trainings here in a moment, and how much those trainings can earn a provider specifically an award, and then we'll take some questions. So what are we up to? How did we get here? This is what we're up to. So when I came on the job just more than a year ago, I inventoried existing early childhood professional trainings that we had. You know, I took a look and I was like, okay, this looks really cool. This is trauma informed, like Prepare for Care is great material, right? Conscious Discipline is awesome. Filming Interactions to Nurture Development, this is super trauma informed, right? And so we categorize those by, you know, trauma informed care principle, you know, so these lessons, the pyramid model, for example, you know, really speak to the safety principle. So that's how we started identifying trauma informed trainings. And then we convened a technical advisory group too of people from all across the state and different positions who helped us put some guardrails on our supports, like how do we want to grow these trauma informed care supports. We also convened a provider design group last June, and we asked them what supports are needed. How do we want to grow these trauma-informed supports? What kind of a cash should we be giving people? What kind of a financial award should we be giving people? Should it be in a tiered payment structure? Or should we give everybody just a little chunk, right? And so that's how we created the structure that I'll be sharing with you here in just one slide. So that's how we came to this, you know, tiered payment structure that we'll be talking about. We're also creating a new training curriculum, which I'm very excited about. It's trauma-informed and healing-centered for adults, and we'll be delivering that training. We'll be making it available to everybody and also including it within our childcare basics, not adding any hours to childcare basics, but making way for the new trauma-informed material within the existing childcare basics hours. We also made a rule that's out for public comment right now about distributing financial awards for trauma-informed care. And then we have a new policy, and we're working to also talk about individual professional knowledge, skills, and abilities. What does it look like from the individual perspective to be trauma-informed? So that's just kind of a quick rehash of where we've been and what we're up to right now. And now I'll get to probably what many of you are most interested in, which is, can I be eligible for one of these awards that DCYF is releasing? And so what we're looking at here on this slide is a tiered financial award structure decided on by those providers, excuse me, during that June design session I talked about. So some things to know about this, right? You can see up top that we have individuals who have a specialty bachelor's degree in infant early childhood mental health are eligible for a $1,200 award. And there aren't that many people that we've identified so far. And that bachelor's we're recognizing because it speaks very directly to the legislative language, the language within the Fair Start for Kids Act. So that's why that's in there. And then the trainings that we've identified with providers and with the advisory group and with my research as being trauma informed include those that you see here on the screen specifically. So you can see that we have Washington Pyramid Model, the new Washington Pyramid Model created by Cultivate and the Herring Center, which is very trauma informed. So discussing very specifically the newer incarnation of the pyramid model, the Washington Pyramid Model. And again, the reason we're recognizing that new material is because it was remade to be more trauma informed and more focused on equity. And so we're recognizing individuals who take pyramid model with an $800 award, those individuals who are eligible based on the other criteria. And also you should note that these awards will be dispersed as long as we have resources. So we don't have a never ending pot of resources. We have $2.2 million to distribute this fiscal year. So we'll be distributing these awards as long as we have funds. At this point, we look like we're in good shape. I don't see us running out of funds anytime soon. So, but just to note, we can only distribute the money while we have it. Also, conscious discipline we're recognizing with an $800 award. Folks have to complete the conscious discipline training, either the infant and toddler training or the preschool training. And then also mobility mentoring for ECAP and early ECAP folks can garner an $800 award. Find or filming interactions to nurture development also can earn a provider an $800 award. And then prepare for care modules. If you've taken 2 or more sessions, prepare for care, you may be eligible for an award. And then Also, the DCF approved developing social emotional skills, which is being provided in Somali and also actually Spanish right now, and maybe even in English in a couple of spots here and there. So those are all eligible for $800 awards. And then when we go into the intensive training category, the one on the bottom, those trainings are eligible for $1,200 specifically. So the DCYF approved trauma informed care series is eligible for $1,200. 4 or more computer sessions is eligible for $1,200. And then DCYF approved prenatal and infant mental health, which is provided in Somali and Spanish, is also eligible for $1,200. And so a couple of other little things I want to highlight, some details here is all awards are capped at $1,200. So in no instance will a provider receive more than $1,200. So that's important to keep in mind. Even if you take pyramid model and also prepare for care 4 or more sessions, you're only going to receive $1,200. So I want to be really clear about that. Also, you can only take 1 training in each category for an award. So for example, you can't take pyramid model and conscious discipline to get 2 awards. So keep that in mind too. And then, let's see what else. Trainings have to be delivered by a state-approved trainer or a DCYF-approved proprietary training entity. So it has to be, a state-approved trainer or somebody that DCYF has approved to deliver the trainings. We want to be very conscious of that. So we've been receiving some questions from our Merit inbox specifically that people are asking, well, I took, pyramid model in Florida 5-10 years ago or whatever. No, that's not eligible. It has to be one of our state approved trainers and has to be by somebody sanctioned by DCYF to deliver the training, just to be very clear. And the reason for that is because we want to make sure that there are learning application supports going alongside the training, such as coaching or a community of practice, because adult learners need to have that additional support to really absorb the information, right? So we want to make sure that there are certain, criteria there that that we're comfortable with in terms of the delivery of the training specifically. And we'll talk a little bit more about some of the award details here, and then we'll pause for questions here in a couple of minutes. So how do you find trainings? One way to do it is in Merit. You can use the Find Training search tool in Merit for approved options. Check that the training listed in Merit states that it's eligible for a TIC award, and these are some of our partners who are delivering the training: Cultivate Learning, Childcare Aware, Voices of Tomorrow here, the Imagine Institute. So those are some of the partners who are delivering those sanctioned trainings, those trauma-informed care trainings. And yeah, please do encourage you to take a look in Merit too if you're looking for some of those eligible trainings. And then another really important thing I want to highlight is in order to receive an award, folks need to have an account in Merit. They need to have a STARS ID number and have their information up to date in Merit, which means also that they're confirmed, their employment is confirmed or verified, right? And so this is important stuff. So to make sure that you're prepared to receive a payment, if you think you're eligible, some things you can do, I should note, is all of our awards are being applied retroactively, right? So, filming interactions to nurture development, sometimes we're going back a few years to provide people awards for that. Conscious discipline, the same thing, is we're going back a few years to provide awards for that. So you want to make sure, as we look through the Merit data, that your employment records are up to date. And so that this is one way to do that. Make sure that your employment is confirmed or verified, right? And so there's all this stuff on here, to make sure you log into Merit, you click on the professional records sub-tab, scroll down to early care and education, school age employment, and then click on the blue plus, click here and to add employment button. So that's very specific details. And we're also sharing this information in our varied communications too. So, and I'm happy to share this slide. I think the slide presentation will be made available to you as well. Couple more just little detail-y things. The only time people are going to need a statewide vendor number is for an education award. You do not need a statewide vendor number for anything else, for any of the training awards. Really important to recognize that you don't have to deal with that. So don't worry about the statewide vendor number unless you want to claim an education award. So that's important to recognize. Some other things that we are beginning to communicate with providers who we've determined to be eligible from our Merit records. So you should begin, if you are eligible, you should be receiving communication by the 12th of May from DCYF and also our contracted training partners. And so the way we're distributing resources is through our contracted training partners very specifically. So it's not going through merit most of the time. You know, if it's a training award, the award will be distributed through one of our training partners, including CCA the Imagine Institute, Voices of Tomorrow, or potentially through an ECAP contractor, right? So that's how the awards are being dispersed. And so the first step in you receiving notification, if you are eligible, you don't necessarily, beyond making sure your records are up to date, you don't have to fill out an application or anything. You should be contacted by DCYF with a letter saying that you have been recognized as being potentially eligible. That's the first step. And then after that, what happens is the contractors should be contacting you to help fill out tax forms, because these awards are taxable too. So keep in mind that there will be tax on these awards, and you will receive an inquiry from one of our contracted partners saying, hey, you know, we see that you're eligible for an award. We need to talk to you about how you're going to receive your payment, and also to help you fill out some tax forms. So that's what's going on there. And then also we are updating information about the Trauma-Informed Care Awards, supports, etc. on our webpage, which is fairly up to date right now. We've been doing a lot of sprucing up on this webpage, so you can find more information there. And with that, I'm going to stop talking at you for a little bit, and I'm sure you have questions. So open to questions.
So Jess, I actually jotted several questions from the chat.
Yes.
And the first one was from a long time, like way above. And it was, are license exempt Head Start programs eligible?
Head Start, no, because they're not supported by the state. Unless it's like a tribal certified for payment situation.
Thank you for that. And then the other question was, are these trainings online or in person? And I was able to answer that person, and they are both depending on what training it is and who is offering the training.
That's true.
Okay, great. And the other question is the emergency rule that's proposed for the year 23 to 24 or for current financial distribution?
It's for in general. I'm not sure if I think it's not limited for any year to my knowledge. I don't know that it's limited for any time frame. Does that make sense? Feel free to have a follow-up question there. I don't know that it's limited.
I'm the one who asked the question. Yeah. So essentially, if it's approved, when would it go into effect?
Well, it's, we're already distributing the awards, and it's unusual. I don't know if it's unusual, but we don't at this point have resources to distribute these awards next year. So the rule will be there, and we have the foundation constructed, but we don't at this point have financial support to continue delivering these awards beyond June 30th.
Okay, and then the other question after that, and there's a lot more, but I am writing them down, is there a time limit to receive this award?
Well, all of the trainings need to be done by June 30th.
And then
this year?
Yes.
One more question. I just joined the meeting. I'm a state approved trainer. My name is Afifa Abdi, and I would like to find out if I'm an individual contractor, an independent contractor with the state. I offer training, but can we get a chance to teach the training also beside only nonprofit organization?
At this point, we're not expanding on the list. If indeed we do receive additional resources to continue delivering the awards, then we will consider additional trainings. But right now, we just don't have enough time to take into account more trainings.
Okay.
Thank you.
all right, and then the next question is, as a coach, if we have complete certificates for conscious discipline, but no record is in merit, will we be eligible for an award, or what do they do with that record? Do they need to add it to merit?
Yeah, we are asking coaches to add their information to merit because at this point we need to have the information in merit to provide an award. And so we're working with CCA-WA, B3QI, and also ECAP. In fact, ECAP providers received probably an email, I think today, from Kelly saying, hey, can we have your stars numbers? So coaches too need to make sure their information is up to date. And we know that you don't have a job role in merit if you're a coach. But we are receiving lists from CCA-WA, B3QI, and also ECAP, so we will know who those coaches are.
All right, and I'm gonna get through the chat questions first because I do see Maria's hand is up. So, but I have you down after we get through the chat questions. So the next one in the chat is, will the letter identify the agency that they should expect to hear from?
Yes. Well, not the letter from DCYF, but the letter from the agency will. So try to be clear. The DCYF letter says, hey, we determined you may be eligible for an award. Keep an eye out for a communication from either Voices of Tomorrow or CCA of WA or Imagine Institute or an ECAP contractor. Getting in more detail about that would have been overly time consuming for us to get into too much. Like, okay, you're going to be contacted by X on that date, and it just was too much.
Thanks, Justin. I also plopped in the chat what the letter looks like, and it will say action needed. Okay, so the next question from the chat is it's questions about like individuals. Will the individuals be contacted rather than the director of the center? And there's a couple questions about how is it based. Yeah, basically like individuals. This is based on individuals.
That's correct. As Marlene is saying, it's individuals as opposed to like center directors who will be contacted. And the resource is just for you as individuals too. The award is just for you as individuals. You don't have any. I got a question about this last night for the Spanish speaking delivery webinar that we did. The resource is just for you. It's an award. You don't have to do anything specific with it, except for pay taxes.
Thank you. And then the next question is, who should providers contact if they think they should have received a notice but didn't receive one?
Well, wait, please, until May 12th, because we're still working through some of the data, even for the older trainings. So please do wait until May 12th. You may contact our merit navigators. You can also contact your trainer. So, reach out to them and be like, hey, trainer, did you put my name in your roster and upload it into merit? One thing I want to note as well is you need to have completed the training. It needs to have been completed in entirety. So just to be clear about that. So, but yeah, please wait until the 12th. And then after that, yeah, please reach out if you haven't heard anything and you think you're eligible.
Thanks, Justin. I also put in the chat the communication that went out from DCYF about the awards for trauma-informed care and training. It's the general communication that has what these awards are, who's eligible, how to find the trainings, and the web page, and when to contact. So I'm going to just plop it into the chat one more time. Right there is that message that everyone can refer back to, and it's in English and Spanish and Somali.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay. So the next question is, who should providers, no, that's not it. For ECAP, is it through larger contractor, PS, ESD, or subcontractor, employer, Pierce County, as our employer was unable to disperse previous funds due to agency policies?
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's more detail that I can get into with you right now. I would encourage you to contact your ECAP folks about that. And if you need more information, contact the navigators and they can reach out to me and I can help too. But with regard to that level of detail, I'm not equipped to get into that.
All right, and the next question. Oh, we're doing chat questions first. But I will write you down once we get through the chat questions. So the next question from the chat was, how many years are you going to go back to check merit for these trainings?
It depends on the training, but in the instance of find or filming interactions to nurture development, I believe we're going back to 2016, the beginning. And conscious discipline goes back pretty far too. 2019, I want to say. As far as we can record, and the content was trauma informed and delivered in such a way that, you know, with the learning application supports, et cetera.
Thank you. And then the next question is, are notices being sent via email or regular mail?
Email.
Email. We already put the link of what the letter looks like. If you want to see it again, I can add it in the chat. It'll say action needed, and it'll be to your email address that's listed in Merit. All right, the next question is, will these go through our employer in any way?
No.
This question is, are home providers, family, and friends eligible?
Yes, if they're receiving subsidy.
And then if more than one of the staff members takes these trainings, is there more than one reward given?
Yes. As long as they're in merit. I had a great question last night from a couple. There are two people who run some kind of a program, and they have the shared license, and they were asking if they both get an award, and it is on an individual basis. So people should individually get awards regardless, as long as they have their information up to date in merit and they satisfy the other criteria. Yes.
Thank you. And then the next question is, how can I apply?
You don't need to apply. That's the thing. Just make sure your merit account is up to date and that you have confirmed, verified employment, etc. You will be contacted. You should be contacted by DCYF first, and then the contracted training partner second. And again, that should happen by May 12th, unless you're taking the training after May 12th. But so no application necessary. The only caveat I would say is, if you're seeking an education award, you're going to want to submit your education verification stuff. But to our knowledge, there are not many people who have that degree, that one degree that we're recognizing. So that's going to be an unusual circumstance.
All right, thank you, Jess. And the next question might be really detailed, and it might be a question for our merit team, but it's how do you enter employment in merit when you are the supervisor over family support specialist and train them? I'm not assigned to a specific license center, but at the main office, merit requires it to attach to a center. Currently, I'm listed under other employment.
Yeah, I think that's beyond what I can answer for you now. I would encourage you to reach out to the navigators.
And really quickly, I believe we have that information on our merit resource page on how to do things in merit, add employment, and all of that. So I'm plopping that link in the chat right now. And if that doesn't help you, please contact our merit team, and I'll add their info again in the chat, which is right now. All right, so the next question is this separate from Mobility Mentoring Foundations training, or is it the same thing?
It's the newer Mobility Mentoring Foundations training. Specifically here, let me pull it up. I have this list over here. It's this one. So I didn't write it down. Yeah, it is the Mobility Mentoring online foundations. It's the newer one. I think that they just rolled out last year, though, just to try to be more clear about that.
Thank you. And the next question is this a one-time award?
Yes. Yes, it should be. I mean, in some instances, you'll see difference payments. So for example, you know, if somebody took conscious discipline and is receiving $800 and then they went on to do 4 prepare segments, they could receive an additional $400, but it's going to be capped at $1,200. So just to explain a little bit in more detail, but yeah, this is a one-time thing. It's not like an annual payment or anything.
Thanks, Jess. And then the next question was about individuals or center as a whole, and that has been answered. These awards are for individuals. And then Maria Espinizo had her hand up, so you're next.
Thanks, Maria, for being patient with us. What's your question? Are you still here? Did it take too long?
Well, we can come back, and if you raise your hand, please, Lily, I'm not sure if I'm saying that correct. I'm sorry. I have you down, but first we're getting through the questions that just came in. So just hold on a second, okay?
Okay.
So the next question is, can you consider next all state approved trainer to teach the same trainings? Please. That question is for our state approved training team, so we can definitely send that back to them. But that was from Hafifa, and Hafifa, you also had your hand up. So if you have another question, please state it now. Hafifa?
I don't have any other question.
Okay. So we will send this back to our training team. There was a question about the contact info for the navigators, which is our merit team. That's been plopped in the chat several times, and we will make sure to follow up with an email to everyone with that and the recording. So you will get that regardless. The next question is action needed just a general statement, or does that indicate we need to make changes to our merit account?
So that reference is just making sure your merit account is up to date, that your employment is confirmed or verified, that all of your stuff is good, that, you know, and also you can check to make sure that training is in your record as well, right? So, and if it's not, then encouraging you to reach out to the training provider and say, hey, did you upload the roster, etc. So, yeah.
Thank you. And then the next question is, if someone got the DocuSign, is it because they are accepted? Sorry, I muted you. But the next question is, if someone got the DocuSign, is it because they are accepted to get the financial trauma rewards?
Yes.
And then the next question, I have tried to go online and find training, but nothing shows up to actually sign up for.
Did you enter FSKA? I did check just yesterday, and there are several trainings in there. And I'm hoping more will be made available in there as well. I've been pestering Voices of Tomorrow to add some more in there since they're not in there currently. But I did look yesterday, and there was pyramid model. There were some other things in there too. And if you are, you know, if you're somebody who works normally also with Imagine, you know, you can reach out to them. They have some trainings, and again, Voices of Tomorrow has some trainings happening too.
All right, and that's also the next question is, how can I take training? So you just answered that, and we'll follow up with that info as well. There's a question about if this is being recorded, and it is, and we will email all registrants the recording and some of those resources covered today. The next question is, this one was about a previous question. Is it thank you? So is it either or? Just want to make sure, as I have taken the MM Foundations training.
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Miriam, do you want to unmute yourself and ask your question? Oh, Miriam is unable to unmute. We will follow up with you via email. I'll write that down.
And then I just saw the question come in. I just caught it. How long is each training? They vary. They're different hour increments, and so typically there are fewer hours in the lower categories of training. So, but they're all different numbers of hours.
All right, and then so Lilia, I'm not sure if I'm saying your name correct, but you're next. Your hand was up.
Thank you very much, Lilia. I just wondering, for example, because I'm a little bit confused what counted, what is not counted. However, for example, if the childcare provider accomplished 3 prepare and probably 2 SEL, but different organizations, does anybody just help or navigate, provider, tell, or if you're gonna take one or two more prepare classes or one more SEL class, you're gonna get the full amount. How does it work?
So it's always going to be capped at $1,200. So for example, if you take SEL, which I think is, did we recognize that for 8 or 12? Let me take another look at that real quick. Okay, so SEL is recognized with an $800 award. And then prepare is recognized depending on if you take 2 or 4. I mean, you're always going to be capped at $1,200. So just to be clear
Yes.
about that, no matter
Yes,
what.
yes, I understand. But for example, the maximum is 800 the provider accomplish with the trainings. But it's a possibility if somebody can tell, okay, you can take one more class or 2 more classes, and you're gonna get $400 more to
Yes.
get the full amount.
That's
You-
true.
What do you mean? Because sometimes when you went through different organizations, I don't know, because I think I took SEL through university.
Oh,
It-
okay, so that's gonna be different. Yeah, let me, sorry if I interrupted you, Lilia, but if you took it from, it has to be a state approved trainer, it has to be recognized by DCYF. So the only social emotional right now that we are recognizing is the one that's that is from Voices of Tomorrow. So just to be very clear about that, it has to be the ones that we recognized and are you know, approved by
But-
DCYF.
But it's strange because DCYF sent email offering SEL, I think SEL through this university, I forgot the name. Anyway, but still, for example, if the people took 2 different trainings through different organizations, and it's possible to take 1 more or 2 more classes and get the whole amount, how does it work? For example, Imagine Institute says, okay, you took 2 prepare classes, you're eligible for $800. And for example, Voices of Tomorrow, you took only 2 or SEL and you're eligible for 8, exactly the provider gets 8, but Imagine Institute can tell you can take 2 more classes prepare and you're gonna get $400 more, the whole amount.
I guess I'm still not quite tracking your question, but so if somebody took the, you know, conscious discipline for $800, I feel like we're doing like a Trivial Pursuit or something. If somebody took conscious discipline for $800 and then they went on to take the next tier, the intensive training, and they earned another amount, it would be a difference payment in $400. So I'm trying to be clear about that, but when you start talking about other organizations, I'm getting a little confused.
You know,
So-
it's 2 scenarios. For example, the first scenario is the provider took only 2 classes prepare, and the organization can tell, okay, if you take 2 more classes, you're gonna get the whole amount. But if the person has 2 different trainings for that eligible for $800, but in reality, if the provider takes 2 more, for example, prepare classes, it's gonna get the whole amount.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, but I'm not sure if is there a question in there? Like, I'm still
Yes,
not-
a question, how
And
the provider know?
oh,
that
how do they know?
has
Okay,
opportunity
so we'll
to get-
be communicating. It may be that, and this is already happening in some instances. It may be that like CCA WA reaches out to you and says, "Hey, you took conscious discipline," and then Imagine also comes around and says, "Hey, you took 4 prepares." So you may receive communications from 2 different contracted training providers. And Lilia, I'm very happy to answer more questions, but I want to make sure we have room for everyone else too.
Okay.
So if you need to communicate more, reach out to the navigators, and I'm talking to the navigators on the reg. So happy to try to answer your questions as they, you know, to the best of our abilities, but I want to also make sure we have room for other folks.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, thanks. Yeah, the next question, and we have like 7 more through the chat, so that's exciting, is are the Conscious Discipline 10 online e-learning videos through ECAP eligible?
No.
The next question is, where will we find the recording of this meeting today? We will be emailing all registrants the link once it's available, and also posting to our webinars webpage, which I will plop in the link to the webinars page right now, right there. The next question is, how many hours are needed to receive the full grant?
It's going to vary. As I noted, all of the trainings have differing hours. So take a look, you know, at the trainings and the communications that we've put out. So some of them are, you know, like to prepare courses is going to be 12 hours, whereas I think the social emotional learning is maybe 8 or 10. I can't remember offhand, but it varies. Pyramid model is closer to 12 or 14. So it's going to be different in many instances, in all instances.
And really similar to that one is, how many credits in trauma do I need to complete in order to receive the award?
Credits. I'm not sure about that question. That sounds almost like a college course, and this isn't really, I mean, aside from the infant early childhood mental health bachelor's, it's really not about college credits. So I'm not sure if I am understanding that.
The next question is, the CDECAP videos I'm referring to are building resilient schools and homes. I missed the list that was shown at the time of mobility mentoring. I'm gonna actually also plop in the Trauma Informed Care webpage, which has all of this info on there. And so here's the link. But Jess, I don't know, do you want to answer that one? The ECAP videos, building resilient schools and homes.
It has to be delivered by a state-approved trainer and with learning application supports. So the videos without learning application supports are not sufficient. Like, so when it's delivered usually by CCA-WA trainers, it's like a whole extra support system that's built into the videos. And so that's why we're recognizing that specifically. So if it's just standalone videos, no, we're not recognizing that.
Thank you. And the next one is the award only for providers or teachers also? And I did write down that it is for individuals, and to please refer to the qualifications criteria outlined in that Gov delivery message that was sent to all childcare providers recently.
Thanks.
The next question is, I'm a state approved trainer. How do I get my training approved by DC?
Did you want to take that, Marlene? You took that same question a little while ago.
Yeah, so for questions around state approved training, those will need to be reviewed by our state approved training team. So I can plop in their training email in the chat, or we'll follow up with everyone with that info as well. And then the next question is, I'm a coach and I took the TAC class and my name was given to Jess from DCYF. I have my merit up to date and an SWV number. Do I need to do anything else? Because I haven't gotten a letter or anything saying.
Great question, Emily. I appreciate it. So the coaches, we haven't yet reconciled the lists of coaches within our payment data. So coaches will be paid after, in many instances, after providers. So I'm still working to reconcile, like I'm waiting on STARS numbers from ECAP and also B3QI and some instances from CCA-WA too. So when I get all of those STARS numbers, I'll put it all into a spreadsheet and we'll figure out who completed what.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And Hafifa has, actually the last question is, I joined the training because of the provider will ask me a question about the Zoom. Hafifa, are you asking if people have questions about these trainings?
Oh, I just joined it because sometimes there will be questions coming up about the fund, because people are receiving email and sometimes don't understand, but a lot of them do. But I just wanted to get more information. I'm thanking you guys for the information.
Thank you, Hafifa. I'm so glad you could make it. And I really appreciate all of you folks being here too and taking your lunch hour to learn about this information. And we really do want to be supportive. We understand that things are moving very quickly. You know, again, this is legislation that was passed not too long ago, and you know, a lot of moving pieces, and we're trying to be responsive and get this money to you folks as quickly as possible. And you know, if things are coming up, please do reach out to our navigators, and I'm working very closely with them to try to answer questions as quickly as possible. So really just respect your time and your work and all of this, and your desire to be more trauma informed.
Thank you.
And the very last question is this a paid training?
This that we're in right now, it is not. This is an informational webinar. Even despite me slipping in some fundamental concepts and thinking around trauma-informed care.
And that's all the questions from the chat. And well, there is one more. Is FFN available for training? And the question, yeah.
Yes, if they're receiving state subsidy.
And I'm just going to plop in again the broad message that went out to all childcare providers about the awards for trauma-informed care, training, and education. So that message provides you all the info you need to know in English, Spanish, and Somali. It directs you to the webpage, Merit, to contact Merit if you have additional questions. And I also plopped in Merit's email address and phone number on there. Oh, that's a good question from Courtney. Will these trainings be recognized by early achievers and count towards education points?
We haven't had that conversation. So, long term, if we continue making these awards, if we receive additional funding, we can have that conversation, but I haven't had it yet. So.
And Valentina has her hand up.
Valentina, please.
Hi, good morning. Yes, so I'm a little confused because I had listened to information about this and was told that we would be contacted by our supervisors, but now listening to this informational session, it sounds like they're not really including this, that you guys are going to contact us directly and we are going to make arrangements through your providers that contact us, and they're going to maybe just mail us a check.
That's about it. Yeah. Or it could
Okay.
be direct deposit, but it's not through your supervisors.
At all. Okay.
Well, in the instance of ECAP, the payments will be going out through contractors, and it could be that those contractors are supervisors. So I want to be a little careful there, but in general, it's not through the programs, right? So there may be some nuance with ECAP and that it's going out through ECAP contractors, right? So
Right, yeah, because we are ECAP, and
Okay,
when
yeah.
they say ECAP contractors, that's confusing.
yeah, that is
so-
confusing. And I apologize for the confusion there. And that would be the nuance, that would be the difference that you're picking up on, in that
Mhm.
if it is going out through, if your supervisor is an ECAP contractor, then yes, it could be indeed true that it's going out through your supervisors.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And oh, Tommy, I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. You have your hand up.
Yes, it's Tommy. I just wanted to kind of reiterate what Jess said. I'm in the process. And we are an ECAP subcontractor through PSESD. So DCYF contacted me with a letter. And they contacted PSESD, which PSESD has contacted my supervisor. So it's kind of going down the line like that.
Yeah, and it
Okay.
is, I realize that it is, we're having communication. I have a meeting with ECAP right after this, actually, in like 3 minutes.
Great.
So, yeah, we're working through questions and also recognizing that some ECAP folks are unlicensed and they might not be in a merit. We're working to reconcile that. We have said all along that folks need to have their information in merit, but yeah, just having conversations around that right now. We're working to get the money out and communicating as best as we can. And I just really appreciate you folks, working with us around all of it.
Really appreciate you and all your
Tommy,
information.
Joe, what are
Thank
you doing at home? Are you
What
working?
am- Yeah,
That's funny. Hey, you messed up Valentina. She was saying how much she appreciates me, and then you interrupted her. Thank you so much. I appreciate your engagement, folks. And again, this is a really exciting time. Like, it's really easy to get lost in the money, and I know money is important, but I was just talking to Marlene. I'm like, I want to have us really focus on how cool this is, that we are growing trauma-informed supports for children and families. And this is just a really exciting opportunity. And I want to keep our eyes on that too. And that this is important work. It's great that folks are getting money, but the work is really important, and you folks are doing the work, you're on the ground doing it. So just really a lot of thanks to you. Thanks, folks. I appreciate your time and your attentiveness and your great questions. Reach out to the navigators. I would say reach out to me, but it's a lot. So reach out to the navigators and they'll reach out to me. Happy to try to answer your questions as they come up. Tony,
Thank
did
you,
you have
Jess.
anything before? Thank you. Tony, did you have something else before we adjourn? Thank you, Faria.
This was very informative.
Thank you, Andrea. I appreciate that. Tonya,
Thank you all and have a nice day.